Hey, all you rad dads out there.
Jeremy, welcome to the Rad Dads show. I'm going to start the way that we always do, and that's by asking, who are you?
Hey Brett, thanks for having me. My name is Jeremy Jessen. I live in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area of Minnesota. I've been playing in punk rock bands since I was 14, and most currently in a band called Rad Owl. I have three kids. My daughters are almost 22 and almost 17, and my son just turned 14 last month. Live
Okay.
with my wife and my kids in the suburban area of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and yeah, that's who
Well,
I am.
happy to have you here. Met you and saw your band Rad Owl last summer at Buddy's Fest, and we've been talking about doing this ever since then. So I'm glad it's finally happening. Um, are you coming up for Buddy's Fest at all this year?
No, we
Okay.
are not going to make Buddies Fest, but we are going to be doing a few shows with the Slip Ons in Alberta in July. So,
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty exciting for me. You guys are playing Calgary and Edmonton, where
yep.
we're from. So, yeah, we'll talk about those shows a little bit later. But you mentioned that you are a dad to three children, and so kind of like from young adulthood down to teenager. So you're kind of dealing with lots of different, I guess, the whole spectrum right now. But you've been through like the young kids. See, I've got young kids,
Yeah.
10 and 7. I should get those right. That shouldn't be so. I shouldn't have had such a delay to get those ages. Um, but my 10-year-old's kind of like starting to look a bit like a teenager, think a bit like a teenager. So I'm interested in your perspectives on that. But I'll start by asking, do you consider yourself a rad dad?
Well, I definitely aspire to be a rad dad. Um, as you know, it presents new challenges every day. Like especially now that my kids are getting older, it's a very different type of experience than it was when they were young. Just, having to help them navigate the realities of the world that we're living in right now and
Yeah.
how many uncertainties there are for young people as they, grow up and, start to evaluate leaving the nest, as it were. So yeah, I mean, I love being a dad. I love all the rewards that come along with it. But it's definitely not without its challenges.
So you mentioned like navigating, helping your kids navigate the world we live in. Maybe I'm reading into that comment too much, but the world we live in is kind of a messed up place right now. And you guys, specifically where you are located in the country, you've kind of been faced with some of those realities like right down your street. And so, like, without getting too political, I'm sort of curious. Like, you mentioned, like, na helping your kids navigate what it means to live in this world and maybe preparing for the future and stuff. Like, what does that look like? What is, what is,
We
what are you doing to help your kids navigate all of that?
I think that my wife and I are pretty in lockstep on this, and that's just we want to raise good people, good human beings, regardless of things that they believe in that might be different than what we believed in when
Hmm.
we were their age, regardless of what's going on around us in our community. We just want them to be good people, kind people, charitable people, and that's the type of things that we try to instill on them on a daily basis. Just being good to your friends, being good to your family, being respectful to the things around you that you may not understand. Um, don't try to, exhibit knowledge of things that you don't necessarily know what you're talking about. Like be a an
Like
eager learn,
humble.
yeah, humble and an eager learner. You want to be, I mean, I still learn every day about this crazy world we live in. So it's things like that, really, that's the crux of what we try to be as parents.
So how do you do that? Like, how do you model that for your kids?
I mean, it comes up just in the regular course. I mean, for example, my youngest, my son, is a hockey player.
Okay.
And hockey has its own subculture, right? It has its own like very distinct style of human interaction and routines and being at away tournaments with a bunch of different people, different parents, different walks of life. And then there's the sportsmanship element of playing a competitive sport and maybe hearing and seeing things, like trash talking on the ice and things like
Yep.
that, and just trying to always sort of review that incrementally with your kid as they're going through it, make sure that they're not developing any bad habits that would bleed out into the rest of their daily lives in school and with friends and things like that.
So you're a hockey dad.
I am a hockey dad. Yeah.
So like were you a hockey player when you were a kid?
I played till I was about 14, and then I
Okay.
kind of started. I grew up in a town that happened to have like a ski hill right outside of town. So, kind of, there was a skateboarding and snowboarding subculture in our
Yep.
town that kind of bled into the punk rock scene. So, as soon as I started getting into that side of life more, I started straying from team sports like really quickly.
Yeah, well, I think that's pretty common like around that age, right? Like 14,
Yeah.
15, 16. You're really thinking about like who am I? What's important to me. I know I had lots of friends. So I was never a hockey player, but obviously hockey's really big here. And I had lots of friends that was around the age where, yeah, 14, 15, 16, where my friends who did play hockey, they either like really kind of went for it
Yep.
or they dropped out like because they were pursuing other interests and stuff like that. How important like how important is it or was it for your kids to play things like team sports, hockey and other stuff?
I mean, they all kind of just naturally fell into it as they aged it till like 6 7, and you start to have the availability of like community soccer and things like that.
Yeah.
So all three of them have been really athletic. My wife and I played hockey. My wife was a figure skater when she was
Oh,
younger,
cool.
at least until like around the same age as me, I think. And then she actually ended up playing competitive roller derby like later on after we had our first child. So there was sports going on kind of around our family, like all throughout. And I think our oldest daughter got really, really into soccer and dance and things like that. So she was really active, and the younger ones, were always dragged along to her events. So yeah, I mean, the only thing, like, hockey is my favorite sport. So I tried to get my daughters to play it, and they each, I think, lasted one season and
Yeah.
just weren't into it. But my son was like, he was all about it since he could walk. So he's always been into it. It's always been his favorite sport.
And so you mentioned your wife does roller derby. Like, are you do you play any hockey right now? Like beer league type hockey or anything like that?
No,
Okay.
that's mostly because I don't want to go put gear on at 10 p.m. at night,
Yes.
when all the beer league ice time is. But we do, like, we have like a wetland, kind of a pond right behind our house. So my son and I will clear it out for a rink in the
Oh,
winter, and
cool.
we'll get out there, a handful of days every winter and kind of carve it up out there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was kind of curious, like if your kids, it sounds like, sort of sports and activity and stuff is just kind of happening around your house and has been happening. So it just was kind of what the kids fell into and gravitated towards. They see their parents doing stuff. Like maybe I'll ask a little bit about music too. Like
Yeah.
are your kids play instruments? They follow in your footsteps at all?
My oldest daughter is really into music, really,
Okay.
really into music, and she hasn't really ever played with anybody, but she sings a lot. We did some videos together during COVID where I think we did a Doughboys cover and posted it on the Rad Owl like online spaces.
Yep.
But the
Cool.
other two, like, aside from the musical requirements that thankfully we still have in our public schools around here, where they have to either do band for a year or two or do choir for a year or two just to get exposure to music, which it seems to be a very like dying part of public education,
Yep.
unfortunately. But that's about all the other two have really done. I would say that my oldest has been the most interested in coming to see me play when available.
Yep. Cool.
The other two don't quite have as much interest in what dad's doing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like I find in talk we talk to lots of musicians, but like it seems like people either take like one of two approaches. Like they really want their kids to play music and really sort of
Yeah.
push that on their kids. I'm maybe in that camp a little bit too, where I've almost felt like I've had to force them to play a little bit. Now they've gotten to the point where they actually like it, but I
Mhm.
really had to push them in the beginning. But or there's people who are like, no, I'll just kind of let them kind of figure out their own path. It's interesting you mentioned like band in school. We have band in school, but I don't think it's mandatory. Like there's like music classes in elementary school, but
Yeah.
I don't think they're required to take band. But I've definitely like been priming my oldest daughter for that. I took band in school and I thought it was
Yeah.
awesome. Like I already played guitar and stuff, but just like the opportunity to play with people, you tend to get to go on like trips and stuff like that and do performances, like all that stuff, getting up in front of people and performing is like to me was like so fun and so helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I played trumpet in school and
Cool.
I always thought it was a great time. So, but I mean, I was into music, interested in music, um, as far back as I can remember. So I think, I mean, obviously one of the challenges as a parent when you're trying to juggle having a regular, work schedule, regular profession, and continuing to play music, on your own terms with bands that, don't have like a huge footprint in the scene, or we're just trying to like keep it going and keep creating. And then you're trying to balance that against being a dad and all the realities that go along with that. I think unfortunately one of the things that I probably regret as a parent is that I didn't put enough into maybe trying to pique their interest a little more in playing an instrument. I mean, there's always still time for that, but I think COVID hurt too a little bit. My
Yeah.
son, I got him a junior kit when he was about like four-ish, five-ish, and I have a buddy in another band in Minneapolis who teaches lessons, drum lessons for kids of all ages. And we actually had a couple in-person lessons with him in like February and early March of 2020. And then
Oh yeah.
obviously they had to be virtual lessons after that. And trying to wrangle my then 7-year-old son to sit on a Zoom call and talk about drums was just not going to happen at that point.
Yeah, without that like energy in the room,
Yeah.
um yeah, it's just not the same. That's for sure. Yeah, it's tough, right? You kind of you'd like your kids to kind of like take interest in similar things to you, but you're kind of always there's always this push and pull of like, well, maybe they're just not that into it, and you don't
Yeah.
want to make that experience negative for them. That's for sure,
Right. You want them
right?
to be their own person, you know? And
Yeah,
like I mean, and for a lot of guys in the scene that I know that have kids that are now like, take Bill and Miles, for example, like it's wonderful to see that play out generationally like that. Like it makes me really happy and really like it fills your cup to see stuff like that. But, you know, for some of us, it's just not the case
yeah.
with,
Well, I don't think it's any like measure of like, you know, of success or whatever, but
yeah.
as a musician, like how great that feels to
Mhm.
play with other people. You can only imagine what it must be like to like have that experience with your own kids. It sounds like you did a bit of that
Yeah.
with like
Yeah.
making videos with your daughter and stuff. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. How do you think, like, do you think, you mentioned like, Rad Owl, you're having to work pretty hard. You've got other commitments. Is it important for your kids to see you like, you know, take the limited time that you have and put it into things that you love? Like, I don't want this to be a leading question for you, but that's tough to navigate.
Mhm.
Having your own interest, devoting time to the things that you love. Is that important for your kids to see? Do they notice? Like, what does that look like in
Yeah.
your home?
I think so. There have been a handful of shows over the years that, that they've all come to. When Rad Owl was releasing our first record, we did like a in-store, like record store show that was all ages that my kids were much younger at the time and they were able to come and see that. And then, when the realities of having to navigate practice time, into the family schedule every week.
Yep.
Like the reality, like they obviously have to be aware of that, especially now that they're getting older and, two of them can drive themselves around. It's more like noticeable that, oh, hey, dad's got practice tonight, so such and such, we're eating at this time, et cetera, et cetera. So like it definitely is something that I make sure that everybody's aware of, that, this is what I'm doing tonight and this is why. And, and then hopefully, the next time a show comes up that they're available for, one or more of them comes out. And my wife always takes like video of us playing and or tries to FaceTime one of the kids who might still be awake to, let them see a song or two when Rad Owl is playing,
That's
especially
cool.
since we do a lot of bar shows. So like a
Yeah.
lot of them are 21 plus.
Not that accessible to younger
Yeah.
kids. Um, do you think like there's kind of this like I'm going to call it a pervasive thought, maybe not in our sort of circle, but that like, becoming a dad or becoming a parent, you kind of have to like necessarily give up, things that kind of matter to you. You kind of like have to put all that stuff on pause. Like, what do you think about that? Like, obviously you haven't done that. It changes things for sure,
Yeah.
but was that something that was conscious for you? Like, you know what? I can't, I know there's maybe pressure to kind of follow my passions and stuff, but or to sorry, pressure to maybe not follow my passions or take a break from all that, but I'm
Yeah.
going to consciously kind of make a decision to keep that stuff alive. Like, was that going through your head like as you became a dad or as you're navigating your kids growing up and stuff?
Oh, for sure. I mean, so in my case, my oldest daughter was born in June of 2004. And it happened to coincide, like one had nothing to do with the other, but my band at the time, Align, which was the band that David from Rad Owl and myself, like
Yeah.
really, we put a lot of our eggs into that basket. We toured for many years, just grinding it out in basements and small VFW halls and stuff. That band happened to be breaking up right at the time that my wife was about to give birth to our oldest. So I had like a natural sort of break there where I could sort of reset everything and get used to becoming a dad before I figured out what the next thing was going to be.
Yeah.
So I think that helped me kind of wade back into those waters without feeling too much like overwhelming, sensation about having to give up things, because I got a little bit of time to get used to it and to figure out what it meant to be a dad. Um, so in that respect, when I see other people kind of just throw in the towel or just kind of change direction away from being in the music scene, I try not to judge that too much, because if it was like all or nothing, I might have freaked out a little bit more. I think I had a little bit of time there to get used to it. So by the time our second was born 5 years later, we had that time to get used to what it all meant and what being young parents was all about and how we could intertwine that with our other interests. And I think that helped.
Yeah, I gave you maybe a little bit more control. Like, I hear what you're saying that like it's kind of a silver lining that you had time. You were kind of not forced to make that decision early on, and you could
Yeah.
kind of figure out what all this parenting stuff looked like before you make a decision to kind of get back into things yourself.
Yep.
And it gives you a little bit more control. I think that is what like creates a lot of tension, with
Hmm.
bands in particular. Like when, okay, all of a sudden one guy's a dad, or maybe not even a parent. Like it could be anything, right? Like they've got like medical shit they're dealing with, or they've got like a family member that needs help, or whatever it is, or a
Yeah.
job that's maybe not as well aligned with, practice schedules and things like that. Then you get that like resentment building up of like, oh, so and so's like we're all ready to go, but this guy is, he's always got excuses or problems. So I think that can create some real tension
Hmm.
for bands, right? So yeah, so it's nice that you were able to kind of figure that out. You had the time to figure that out yourself. Did like taking you back 22 years, like do you think becoming a parent changed you?
Uh, yes. I mean, I'll put it this way. I was excited about it happening, but I had no idea what I was in for. I mean, you can read or you can have people tell you as much like until you're actually taking care of a tiny human being that is absolutely helpless without you. It's like it's really hard to know um what that's going to mean for the rest of, your your day, your week, your month, your year. Um but I definitely think that once she was in the picture and once the other kids came along, like you do sort of change what you think about what you're trying to accomplish. Um, it's not that we don't, even at almost 50 years old, still dream about being rock stars, but
Yeah.
for me, the goal is just to make stuff happen and to create, to continue making records and to chase the opportunities as they come, but not to like hinge your entire livelihood and well-being on it anymore, to keep it healthy and to keep it positive and to keep it in keeping with what you want to be as a family man and as a partner.
Yeah, I mean, like, what are those other priorities for you, I guess? Like I think about myself and like ways that I've changed, and there's lots of ways as a parent, but like, one of the things I've really noticed that um, I always like to talk about because I think it's really important is the value of community.
Hmm.
And like before I had kids, I didn't really realize or appreciate how important your community was to you, like whatever that means to you. Not, excuse me, not necessarily your neighborhood, could be your neighborhood, but like just everybody, like the importance of those connections to other people. And like, are there things that, you've kind of realized as time has gone on that are like important to you that you didn't know were that important before? Like outside of like obviously your kids, like loving your kids, but your worldview or whatever it is.
Hmm. I don't know. I feel like I've been pretty consistent since I was probably 16, 17 years old in terms of like worldview and community and all of that. I will say that like having kids and sort of wanting to be a supporter of your kids and their interests as they develop naturally. Obviously, they're like I've put myself out there more with, the hockey
Yep.
families or the soccer families or the dance families, being a pretty introverted person otherwise. So like not being like I all of my social endeavors are 100% like related to music and punk rock. It's now, sometimes related to my son's hockey teammates and going over to the coach's garage to hang out with the rest of the dads and, just kind of sit around and talk for a while, like to people that I don't know that well. Like that sort of thing can only help with helping my kids navigate through, growing up in the community that we happen to live in. So I would that's kind of one example there.
Well, that's kind of where my comment was coming from too, is like I think of myself as like an open-minded person. I have always been open-minded. The punk rock community like kind of instills that in you. Like someone falls down, you pick them up, and I was always that way. But punk rock has its own way of like, you if you're not careful, you can be you can be closed-minded about things too, meaning like these are the people that are like me, and I want to
Uh,
spend time with those people. I think you were kind of getting at that. Like this kind of like your whole existence is like being part of that scene. But I kind of found like for me, it was at the expense of maybe finding relationships or connections with people that I wouldn't have otherwise. And I feel like my kids have really given me that opportunity. Like you said, with maybe the other hockey dads or hockey parents or
mm,
whatever, you wouldn't have otherwise kind of associated with them, but you kind of find like, oh, this is good. And by you hanging out with them, it allows your kids to hang out together,
yeah.
and that gives them a good experience. And I've like met some of my best friends through like my kids going to school. And before my kids were in school, I hardly even talked to my neighbors. I was like, yeah, I'm going and doing my own thing,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
So that's kind of like an interesting kind of piece. But it sounds like you were kind of like ready to become a dad. Like you were in your mind, you were like, yeah, I'm interested in doing this. I think I maybe know what to expect. Were you did you have fears? Were you nervous at all?
Oh yeah, I mean, nerves, fears, like I mean, obviously when you have a baby, you're always just like terrified that
Like, am I going to
that
break them?
yeah. Yes, exactly. So yeah, in that respect, absolutely. I had no idea what it was going to be like. But it was very easy for me. I felt it very natural and easy to just fall into it and start to value like being my version of whatever being good at
Hmm.
it means.
And how's that evolved over time? Like we talked a little bit at the beginning about like, what does it mean to be a rad dad? But like, has your definition of being a rad dad sort of changed and evolved over time? Like, what does it mean when you like lay down in bed at night and think about like, was I a decent dad today? Or like, what does that mean to you? Like, what are those traits that you think are important? And, at the end of the day, if you've kind of checked off those things, you kind of feel good about what you've done.
Yeah, I mean, obviously when they're really young, it's are they are they clean? Are they eating well? Is everything okay? Like are they or picking them up from daycare, et cetera, just getting through it. But as they get older, then you have to kind of flip that to being a little bit more of a like a sounding board. Like how was your day? Like what went on in school today? Like and making sure that you try and dedicate some time each day to actual interaction with them on
Like
an emotional
emotional connection.
verbal level, like just to make sure that you're exhibiting to them that you're around and you're available, because I think, one of the things, especially with a family of five, we can get caught up in, the family calendar and the routines and just getting through each day to get to the next day and making sure that, you know, you know, my wife and myself aren't getting too distracted where we can't do our jobs well, et cetera, et cetera. So you just it can get it can creep up on you and like you'll wake up one day and realize, wow, I haven't really talked to my son in the last 2 3 days. We gotta kind of take care of that. So that's one of the things that I am definitely actively trying to work on right now as I continue to try to be a rad dad.
Are those needs, are they like greater for your kids as they're kind of like going through those teenage years?
They can be. I think it depends on, I mean, each one of them are very different personalities. So the types of conversations that they would seek with either myself or my partner are can be drastically different from kid to kid. But um yeah, I mean I- anybody will find that as they start to get older and they start to see the world through like their own developing eyes and emotions and brain, that yeah, that it presents a whole new set of challenges that you may not be able to really anticipate until you're in the middle of it.
Yeah. I'm curious about like the band, like how does that dynamic work in terms of like, do you feel like you're able to balance everything well? Are are there unique challenges about being in a band and kind of managing the calendar, like you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, so it's there are multiple levels set with us because I mean, we're all aging dudes at this point, and we all have our own set of responsibilities and priorities. So with that, like, when you're 22 and you're doing this and you may be living in a house together with all your gear in the basement, then there's no practice calendar to worry about. You're just like, everybody's home. Let's go
Yeah.
downstairs and practice. Well, now we share a practice space with like two other bands. We have our earmarked Tuesday night, and from week to week, I might have a hockey game on Tuesday night. So like then there's the other guys, John or I mean Dave and Jeremy, the other Jeremy, having occasional travel shows with Snodgrass and things like that we have to navigate as well. So for us, it's become way more of a constant communication
Yeah.
to make sure everybody knows what we're doing right now. Are we booking a show next month locally such that we'll just practice a set? Are we concentrating on writing? So there's a lot more like electronic communication to try to coordinate stuff than everybody shows up on every single Tuesday night at the exact same time and we practice.
Right. It's just not a reality anymore.
No, no.
Yeah, especially when you've got family calendars and other commitments and things like that you have to work around. So, yeah, those are like real challenges for a band and things that you kind of have to have that trust in each other too, so that people aren't, bands are like little families themselves, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So you're always wanting to make sure that everybody's kind of like on the same page as much as you can so that you can avoid those situations of like resentment and things like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it sounds like you guys are everyone's pretty cool. I've met, the three of you guys, and I mean, it's kind of neat to see a band um that wants to hang out together, like that look like friends. That's not always the case.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the one of my favorite things about Rad Owl is that we all grew up together, David, Jeremy, and myself, and we didn't really play in bands per se when we were teenagers, but we were all hanging out together in the same circles, played in bands that played shows together, and then Jeremy and David played in a band called Attention for many years, and I was kind of around them in my bands, and so we started Rad Owl in like 2016 basically as a childhood friend band, and it was never going to be something like we were just getting together and playing like All and Sam I Am covers at first, and it just kind of evolved into an actual band, and it just works so well because we have that shared history where we have teenage years of knowing each other and then 20 years of maturing and becoming
Yeah.
adults, able-bodied adults, and so now we know exactly what each one of us is about, and it makes it so much easier to navigate all those little things, those little frustrations, those little like spurts of melodrama that make being in bands interesting. Those are just little roadblocks to us. It never really phases us too much. We get through them and then we move on to the next.
Yeah. That's so important, to be able to navigate that. Well, I guess speaking of the band, so tell me a little bit about what's sort of new with the band. We mentioned there's some shows coming up in Canada next month, but you guys also had a split come out just recently. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So it's a really interesting story. There's a skate punk band from the late 80s, early 90s from Miami, Florida called Quit. And we grew up in Mankato, Minnesota, which is, an hour south of Minneapolis, St. Paul. And we had a college radio station in our town when we were teenagers. And the guy who did the Sunday night punk rock show happened to be a transplant from Miami. And he introduced Mankato to this band Quit through
Oh,
this radio
cool.
show. And we all fell in love with this one album they had. And it was like a white whale of an album that we didn't know anything about these guys. They'd never really toured up our way. And so years later, we were down at Fest in Gainesville playing in like, I think it was 2023 when All and Descendants were down there, and there was a
Hmm.
bunch of great bands that year. And Dave and Jeremy basically bumped into these guys at one of the Fest shows and just befriended them. And we ended up becoming really fast friends. And last summer they came up and did a couple shows in Minnesota. And as part of planning those shows, we had a leftover song from our second album that it was all mixed and ready to go. So we just had an idea to do a split 7-inch with them, and it turned out really great.
I've got it here. Not sure if
Yep.
yeah, if people are able to see that, but yeah, it's great. And so cool to like that's one of the things I really love about splits is when, there's kind of like an intention behind it. Like there's like a story behind the split coming together. So I didn't know that story, and I'm gonna have to look up that album too, because I'd never heard of Quit before.
Yeah, and I guess Smart Punk is reissuing their record. I think
Oh,
it's
okay.
coming out, yeah, this
I
summer.
love those guys. That's smart punk. Um, Okay, awesome. And so Rage Gracefully is coming up on its like 2 year birthday, or maybe has just had its 2 year birthday. It's hard to believe that it's been out for 2 years. Do you guys
Yeah.
have other plans for recording? Are you writing right now?
I'm writing a lot.
Okay.
Our process is such that we've had a lot of things going on this spring where it's hard for us to get together in the same room. So it always it's always tough for us to arrange and finish songs unless we're in the same room. We're
Yeah.
not really a singer songwritery kind of band, so I can put together a skeleton of a song, but it's going to take a few hours, especially with Dave and Burgo being such a like an all-year kind of rhythm section.
Yeah.
The songs really need some time to percolate in their minds and for them to get their own spin on them because I can't play drums like that. So um I have a home studio, like, it's the room I'm in right now where
Yeah.
I'm able to, I can put together skeletons of songs and do vocal demos and stuff like that. But until we get in a room and hash them out, they kind of sit at sort of a 50 to 60% completion stage. So that's where we're at right now with like 8 to 10 song ideas.
And
We really,
is that your typical approach? Like, are you kind of usually the guy that brings that skeleton to the band? Like, I know it might be different, but
yeah.
depending on the song, but is that the typical approach?
Yeah, so when our first record, it was basically I brought in riffs and
Yeah.
then we turned the riffs into songs. And then obviously the other guys would have like a bridge or a verse here and there. So that was very much organic, ground up. Obviously, during pandemic times, I kind of had to adjust. For the longest time, I've just been a riff writer, and then I write vocals on top of riffs. And you can't do that by yourself because then you just end up with like 30 riffs and no actual song ideas. So I tried to make a concerted effort during those times where I was isolated to start to actually think about the craftsmanship of a song the way other people write songs when I was always just kind of a riff writer. So it's kind of evolved from the first record to the second record a little bit, where Rage Gracefully was a little bit more of a like half the songs were things that I brought in somewhat realized, and then we finished them off, and then half the songs were the classic style where we built riffs on riffs.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking it's going to probably resemble something similar for the third record, but it's just a little bit slower going.
I think you can build songs just off riffs, and if you need proof of that, well, Rage Gracefully actually I think is such a great album. And Dave, when he was up here last month or a couple months ago, we were actually talking about how much it to me evokes like propaganda. And I know they're a
Mm,
bit of an influence for you, but I don't know if you follow Chris's Patreon, but he talks a lot about his writing process on there, and a lot of it is like starting from riffs, and that's
yeah,
I hear a lot of like similarities between your song, I'm assuming your songwriting style and his in terms of like just having a super cool riff and figuring out where to go from there. And it's funny because Propagandy, they're like a band who, if you're not a musician, you may not pick up on this, but like there's never a chorus. Like they have
yeah.
like 5 songs that have like a chorus and you don't notice, but they can
No,
build this like beautiful tapestry of a song that's like got, you know, 3 or 4 cool riffs throughout the song that just like take you on this journey. And I feel the same way with especially with Rage Gracefully.
thank you. Yeah, they're obviously a huge inspiration for many reasons. Not, I mean, obviously
Well, and
musically
yeah, and sorry,
and
just to be clear, I'm not saying it's like derivative or anything. Like
right.
it's a similar journey you're taking the listener on, I think.
Yeah, and it's more that as we've all gotten older and as Chris has kind of put more of himself out into the world, like
Yeah.
in terms of the process and who they are as people and how they go about doing this, that's the part that's inspiring to me. Like
Yeah.
the fact that they still work as hard as they do on the craftsmanship of it and they go to the practice room as often as they do at their ages. It's amazing. It makes me, it definitely, anytime that band does something new, even if it's one of his podcasts where he shows an early version of a song,
Yeah.
like it makes me want to get down here and pick up my guitar.
it's so inspiring because he is so thoughtful about everything he does, right? Like um even just to like I've played in some bands over the years, and like I'm not sure I even have the recollection of like, where that song came from, or what exactly I was thinking when we were putting that together. But he's got this like encyclopedia in his brain. You can tell he's thought very carefully about everything, right?
Yeah.
And I love listening to him talk about his songwriting
Yeah.
processes.
And it's often hilarious too. So
He is hilarious. He's yeah, such good sort of like dark humor. Well, okay, and so let's talk about your shows coming up in Alberta. We're so excited to have Rad Owl coming to Edmonton. You're also going to Calgary. So it's
yeah,
July 17th and 18th.
yeah.
July 17th in Calgary at Dickens, and
Dickens.
July
Yep.
18th in Edmonton at the Starlite Temple, which is a great room. If you haven't been there before, you're going to love it. It's a
Yeah.
great spot. Have you been to up to Alberta before?
I have my band Align toured Alberta as part of like just we had like a 6 week US tour in 1999. So that was the last time I've been up there. And that tour
Okay,
was silly. We didn't have an agent. We didn't have anything behind us. We were just out in a van for like 6 weeks
get in the
all over
van
the
and go.
US. Yeah. So that was the last time. I can't wait to see the um the Chai Pig mural
Yeah.
in Edmonton, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I think we're playing Red Deer on Sunday. I just don't
Oh,
have
okay.
I don't have details on that. So
Yeah, I think Dave was saying you guys were working on that. So, yeah, that'll be great. We're excited to have you, and you're touring with Slip Ons for this run.
yeah,
So,
which is
and
wild.
yeah, and so well, I know you guys are big Doughboys fans, and so there's that connection with Brock and his time in the band. But was last summer Buddies Fest, was that kind of when you guys really met and got this going? I think Brock was saying you knew each other from beforehand, but
Yeah.
that was really when
So
this idea germinated.
yeah, I would say that that's true. I think that was the first time I met those guys in person, but Dave and Burgo had played with them in Vancouver with Snodgrass the year prior.
Hmm.
So I think they already had set things in motion of Rad Owl and Slip Ons eventually doing something together. So it's rad that it's finally happening.
Yeah, it's going to be a great fit. I'm super excited to have you guys come to Edmonton. We'll see, what the schedules look like. Maybe we can show you around a little bit. When Dave was here, I took him to Rogers Place. I don't know how exciting that was, but it was pretty fun to kind of walk around there. It's a brand new arena. It's pretty cool. Um, okay, well, yeah, we will make sure to post all of the information on our socials, and make sure people know where to get tickets. We'll post some links to your Bandcamp. Is that the best place for people to kind of stay in touch with Rad Owl? I know you've got social media and stuff too.
Yeah, Bandcamp, the Instagram has like the link tree link.
Okay.
That's got all the stuff on it. So
Okay. Well, awesome, man. I really appreciate you taking time out of your Saturday, which I know is very busy, to come on the Rad Dad show and talk a bit about being a dad. I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you if you have any kind of last words of wisdom for dads out there listening.
oh boy, that is put me on the spot. I just wake up every day eager to know your kids. That's all I can say. They're they're going to be the most important human beings in your life eventually, even if you don't necessarily see it when you're new to it. So just be there and be present and be willing to listen.
I like how you put that about like know your kids. Because I think when our kids are young, we sort of feel like we do know everything about them. We are kind of shaping them and
Yeah.
molding them. But the older they get, and it happens younger than you might think, you're learning from them, and they're
Yeah.
they're their own person. So yeah, I like how you put that. Know your kids. It's great. Thanks, man. Appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.